Boston or away?
A little bit of work in Florida and then Aruba.
Really?
It was my.
You should have a better tan. I was gonna say.
It's my favorite island.
Oh yeah.
Actually, ironically, it got invaded by buffalo.
Oh.
So one day I was walking and a bus stopped with 120 people from Buffalo. Wearing 716 shirts.
I think you can go anywhere in the world. Like I went to Florida last year. I went to Anvil Island, and it was unbelievable. Like the people from work. You can't get away from Buffalo people.
Okay, everyone, we are live streamed.
So they canceled everything for this group in 2020. They kept adding on and adding on and adding on. And I mean, it was impressive because they were all wearing, Inga State shirts. And so they invaded. I mean, they took over.
Did you get back?
Friday night. I put a buffer in now because I tend to get trapped in places like Charlotte. And thank you. I love Charlotte, just not between 1 and 5 in the morning.
Tom Sweeney, all the board members are getting them, okay?
Great, thank you.
Better?
It is. Thanks.
Oh. I just talked to your buddy, Dave Manjoya. We're trying to arrange a luncheon for Jim Fink, because he lost his job, you know that, don't you? Yeah. So they want to take him, the IDAs want to take him to lunch. So.
Live stream.
Oh.
Just so you know.
I got 2 left, Tommy. See, 3. Oh, we got a quorum. Michael, some of these things, can I go over this with you at the end of the meeting? Some of these, I gave a copy to Kevin just in case, so. And yeah, Kevin just gave me a copy, so, and I had a copy, but those are all these companies that have not responded, I guess?
Oh, yeah, for the
Okay. Oh. I got the implant study for Lucas James here.
Oh, that's your.
You got it? It's all in it? Okay. Okay. All right. I just brought it along just in case, you know me. I'm like an old man.
Okay, I'm calling the Governance Committee meeting to order. We have on the agenda, we're talking about the feasibility study that has to be signed. We are going to discuss the terms and conditions because it was never discussed before with the other board member. The board did turn around and pass it, so it will be signed, but we have to get the terms and conditions to in effect. Bob, you want to go over that?
Yeah, looking through this, I think there's a couple of different areas in here that perhaps don't protect the interests of the IDA. The first one is on number 10, where it says some data will need to be collected from priority sources and may come in at cost. These items may include, and it lists the different items that are on there. Our contract at the end says the cost is going to be, what is the total cost here? $74,480. This seems to indicate that we may be hit with additional charges. Therefore, I believe that should be taken out of there because we don't want to get hit with any additional charges. The board hasn't approved that, so I think that needs to go. The other couple of things are, okay, on page 12, the community engagement. This is confusing, but apparently they want to meet privately with individuals, and I believe this should be open to the public when they get to this point in the community engagement. They want to invite, I'm sorry, it's by in-person invitation only, stakeholder workshop. I think this should be open to the public so that the public can see what we're doing. There's a lot of things going to be happening at this particular meeting, so that it should be open for everybody to see what's going on. And then the last recommendation that I have is on page 16, the signature page, where it says, this proposal may be accepted by signing and returning one electronic copy to Consult Econ Incorporated. The attached standard terms and conditions are hereby incorporated by reference as part of this submittal. I think that sentence needs to go completely. There is some confusion as to, these are the pages that are on there, which is a whole subcontract, and there's lots of things in there where we could pay additional funds, funds. Okay. And also, there's some things in there about whatever they produce, they own, we don't own it. Lots of expenses, reimbursable expenses, which are already covered in the 15 pages in there. It says in here also, this contract, unless otherwise specified, the agreement shall be governed by the law of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I mean, this whole thing in here leaves the IDA open to various forms of liability that I don't think should be in there. And if this is our contract here in these first 15 pages with the signature, I don't think that these last 4 pages need to be on there, because it just opens us up to, again, additional cost that wasn't approved. It's 3 pages, right? Yeah, 3 pages. Opens us up to additional cost that wasn't approved by the resolution that the IDA board approved. So.
Well, yeah, what we can do is we'll sit down with legal, we'll get this drawn up, and then present it to them to see if they want to accept the conditions were set forward. We'll let the board members know. On top of that, I just received this, Paul, your counsel. Do you want to just mention this here?
That was at a request of the board at the last board meeting, because Lynn brought it up regarding the EDC qualifications. So I promised you that I would get the incidentals, if you would, from that EDC, and that's what that is. I didn't make copies of it. If you want to make copies of the board, that's what the EDC does for $800 a year.
Now, we could be doing the same thing we're doing with this contract for $800.
We'd have to talk to them and ask them exactly what they
their fees would be.
could
So
and what
it
they
would have
couldn't.
been, it would have been considerably cheaper.
And I guess you admit what the EDC, or you were in Cooperstown or Albany or whatever, Lynn, maybe you could speak to it better than I can, but that I got all the different qualifications for the membership into the EDC, Lynn, and which I gave a copy to him. So if you want to make a copy,
I just got that, so I'll have to get that distributed. So that's basically what we were looking at today. We just want to get this clarified, so once we sit down with legal and get this actually drawn up,
Get it signed and get it out.
and then, yeah, and they agree to our conditions, then we'll get it signed and get it out. So that pretty much is it. That's all we were going to discuss today.
So I wanted to just, I did reach out to you today. I asked to have a conversation. You said you had no time. I asked for just 5 minutes of time to be able to touch base before this meeting, and I heard no response back, which it would have been nice to be able to touch base before this meeting. But in an email, I had sent an email in March asking about where the signature was on this document. We had voted in December. We as a board had voted again in March. And your response to me was, please find the attached minutes, please review, and then that I should be looking at and review the governance committee bylaws. So that email was not one that you sent to me. It was one that you had Andrea send to me.
I'm not, because of your comments made about me in the
Please,
past.
let me
on tape,
ask-
I'm not
let
going to
me-
respond directly to you anymore, not unless it's in this room. I'm
So,
making that clear.
understood, and I appreciate the clarification. In looking at the governance committee bylaws, what I read is, the governance committee shall keep the members of the agency informed of current best practice, governance practices, review corporate governance trends, suggest updates to the agency's policy or corporate governance principles, and shall advise those responsible for appointing members to the agency of the skills and experience required of potential agency members. So I don't think that any of this on the agenda even falls
Well,
under what this committee should be
you
doing.
gotta go down to the
And
powers-
I wanted to
The powers
bring
of
up
the
the
governance
fact
committee?
that
Sorry.
I wanted to bring up the fact that a letter was sent to the town regarding a member, and people submitted applications or sent letters in. Those never went through the governance committee, and that, our responsibility is to be working alongside the town to get appointed members who have skills and experience, but instead we're focusing on this. I do want to say that, well, I guess to address you directly in this room, in December, the board voted to move forward with the feasibility study as it's written in this proposal. So that's not changing terms, that is the proposal that we were getting. Did the board vote in favor of that proposal?
Yes, they did.
Did you sign the
No.
document?
I will
then
sign
you-
the document. But, remember, Rudy, you're forgetting one thing. You sat on the governance committee last year, you, Chair Fedoli, and Frank Tadaro. You did not hold one meeting like you're supposed to by the bylaws. You did not turn around and make any suggestions. You just dropped this on people. I asked one of the members, did you even read the last 3 pages? He told me no. And the last 3 pages are the most important pages. And when you talk about being responsible and fiduciary, you've got a document there that needs to be filled out because you failed to fill it out. Just like the other individual you talked about failed to fill out an oath of office card. You failed to fill out your financial report. And that's got to be put in here. So don't tell me what has to be done and what I should be doing when you should be doing it yourself.
No, the reality is the board voted, a majority of the board voted to move forward with this proposal, with the terms and conditions that were in here. If board members didn't read the proposal, including the last pages, that's on them, and that is, unacceptable.
And that's why I'm trying to protect this board.
But
We
then
will get it signed,
we
but we're going to
delayed.
change, we're going to put our...
We delayed, and then we brought it back to the board again. So you wanted to rescind the vote, so that this same board, well, actually a different board, right? Now a new LIDA board for 2023 had the opportunity to look through that proposal, ask questions, and vote again. And for the second time, the board voted to move forward in terms of not rescinding the proposal.
So you
we
think not
are
letting the public in?
obligated. Say that?
You think making this a closed thing is open government when it's only by invitation? Not only the contractors and the developers, but also the people like sitting here today wouldn't be able to participate, not unless somebody, I take it like yourself and a few others, are going to make the decision on who gets what invitation.
No, I am speaking on behalf of the board that voted right now, that if there were issues, you should have brought those up. Same thing, Councilmember Leary, you had the opportunity to bring those issues up in March for us to tweak and bring back Consult Econ. The reality is that didn't happen. So we should be signing this document and this proposal as it lays sit. It feels like it's been stall and delay tactic and stall and delay tactic, and let's find points to point and prod at. And what it really is just disregarding democracy, is what it feels like. That not only did we as a board take and vote and say our will, we felt like we needed direction. We felt like this group could help us find that direction as a board. And you disregarded that. You chose
I'm not
as a
disregarding
leader.
it. It's
No, you
gonna get
are.
signed.
No,
It's gonna
it's
get signed,
5
but I'm
months later.
protecting the IDA.
It's 5 months later, and you may think that, but really what you're doing is you're disregarding what the rest of the board, the majority of the board wanted to do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond now?
Sure.
Okay, the rest of the powers of the governance committee. The board of directors has delegated to the governance committee the power and authority necessary to discharge its duties, including the right to meet with and obtain any information it may require from agency staff, obtain advice and assistance from in-house or outside counsel, accounting, and other advisors as the committee deems necessary, solicit at the agency's expense, persons having special competencies, including legal, accounting, or other consultants, as the committee deems necessary to fulfill its responsibilities. The governance committee shall have the authority to negotiate the terms and conditions of any contractual relationship subject to the board's adopted procurement policies as per Public Authorities Law 2879, and to present such contracts to the board for its approval. The governance committee takes care of the negotiations for this. There hasn't been a governance committee, this is the first one that I've been involved with, first one they have that deals with this. So that's all we're doing, is exercising the rights, the powers of the governance committee to make, changes on there.
You make it sound so good, but the reality is this governance committee meeting should have happened before. That we've voted on these terms and conditions.
Remember,
And
Ruta, I
it's
was
a
trying
moot
to
point.
schedule that, but you got to remember, everything else that's been thrown at us, by the time the board got set, this is the first time the governance committee, because I have to have this in the paper 10 days in advance. You know the rules.
I know the rules.
And I
it's-
couldn't have got it done in March, so I don't know how you expect me to get this resolved in January when we couldn't meet in January.
You could have done February. I mean, there are options. If you wanted to make this happen, the reality is you could have made it happen. Where we're at right now is that Consult Econ is not interested in working with this board anymore. And I think that that is probably where it should be. You have, again, disregarded democracy 2 times. You've disregarded the will of this board. This has become a political hot potato, which it never should have been. This could have been a really, really great thing for this board. It could have been a really great thing for this community, but who wants to be involved? And we're going to see this, and mark my words, we're going to see this. Companies are going to not want to work with Lancaster. Businesses are not going to want to come to Lancaster because of what they are seeing happening at this table. It's unfortunate, but I think that we don't need to be discussing this anymore because I expect that they'll be withdrawing their proposal.
Get the letter for the withdrawal, and then we'll have Paul turn around and go forward with this other proposal, if that's what you want to do.
So your delay tactics worked,
Whatever you
and
wanna call it.
it is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that at this point now the will of the board is being disregarded.
That's your opinion. Any other business? Okay, we'll adjourn. We got 2 minutes. We're adjourned. I don't know if the other board members want to come up and take their seat.
At least we taught you how to write. I'm picking on Kevin. Something else. I get enough grief. I like to pick on you, though. You know that.
After the meeting.
Yeah.
So we voted without consult from your part? Got to know my attorney. He's very heavy about reviewing all the contracts and finding a questionable thing to secretary to.
You met Andrea. You met Andrea? Yes. What's your wallet?
That's getting,
I'm picking on everybody, Andrea. I just picked on Kevin. I just told him he learned how to write.
Bring it.
My buddy Kevin.
Call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance, please.
It's not here.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think you can do the roll call, but you know Grant is here.
It is not.
Yeah, we can wait a minute for him to come back. Okay, you do the roll call, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Yes, here. Okay, we're gonna.
Under
vote.
the question really quick, I just wanted to confirm, I guess maybe with Kevin, that there's been back and forth about whether Shannon McNichol is still a board member, is that seat vacated? Are you able to weigh in on that?
If the board wants me to weigh in on that, I can do that.
Please do.
I do. I'd like to know.
Okay.
I'd like to know.
So I would need some facts from someone, but was an oath card, I assume this is about the oath of office and the impact of not filing the card within 30 days. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the card was not filed within 30 days. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Okay. The way the public officer's law works is that when you don't file that oath card, the appointing authority, which in this case is the town of Lancaster, has to fill a vacancy. However, the caveat is the person who didn't file their oath card remains as a holdover member until the vacancy is filled by the town.
Except in our bylaws, you're only required to have 3 to 7 people in there. So in effect, we were trying to fill it at the town board meeting, and unfortunately, the decision was made to table it at that point. But when you look through our bylaws, we don't have to have 7 people. We only have anywhere from 3 to 7 people. So by not filling that, the board just said, we're not going to fill it at this point. It'll be addressed perhaps at the next town board meeting, depending upon how the votes go, to fill the position. So there's a question of, because when we were in here before, you said we had to fill it. Well, we don't. By bylaws, it's 3 to 7 people. So we can go down as low as 3 people and still function. Now,
You can, but you cannot shorten the term of an officer or of a member. So if the town board decides that they want a 6-member board or a 3-member board, they have to pass a resolution to that effect. Right now, the board consists of 7 members and you have a vacancy. That is correct. I said all that. The caveat here is that the holdover member is still a member until the town board fills that seat.
Okay, she can come, let her come up and take her seat if she wants.
Kevin, so, and I'm in quite agreement with this, okay? That board seat is hers until that town board decides otherwise. They have not decided. So she's still a voting board member, am I correct?
That is correct.
okay, but let's clarify. The seat is vacant. The person who's coming up here is going to be a, what do they refer to him as, a holdover?
They're a holdover
Okay.
member, correct.
Nothing changes from that vacancy. There doesn't have to be announcements, there doesn't have to be anything done, that the town board can decide to put somebody into that spot at this point in time.
And
So-
when that
and-
appointment, when that appointment happens and that person's duly qualified, meaning they filed their oath card, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And again, my objection to this, and if it goes to have to be challenged somewhere, is the town board can knock this down to 6 if they want to. Okay?
By resolution, sure.
So, Kevin, in regards to this sitting board, the sitting board member,
Yes.
do they have any right to apply for that seat again?
Perhaps.
So if the board, the town board, doesn't replace her, she stays on the board until the end of this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, subject to some other changes, like knocking it down to 6 or somebody else getting on there.
Well, that's the town board's
Yeah,
business.
and again, this is,
That's their
Right.
business.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's town
not
board.
this board.
Shannon, if you
Yeah.
want to come up and take
She
a seat,
sits on
Yeah.
the
you're
seat.
more than welcome.
Just one follow-up question. So I recall reading the letter that you wrote to the town board. I don't recall seeing, other than the fact that she's missed X amount of meetings, as the reason why. Was the oath of office
you have a package?
card not in, was that mentioned in that?
That wasn't mentioned, they found out about that later. Out of, counting today, we've had 13 meetings. Counting today, she's been in the seat 7 times out of 13.
I know I went through each
You
of
have
the
to have a
minutes
package in front of you,
from
please.
last year in order to get familiarized with what was going on. There was a number of people that missed meetings. And the one thing well, let me finish. The one thing I didn't see, looking at the bylaws of this group, is the qualifications or things that would happen to get somebody removed. I guess I just found it a little bit odd that this was not discussed, that you wrote the letter as chairperson, the only person that signed that document, and that whether or not you reached out to her, I have no idea. I did. I didn't get a response to my email, but she did try calling me, and I tried calling her back the last couple of weeks. I just know in other organizations, there's sort of a step, if you would, to getting yourself booted off the board. And I don't see that in the bylaws.
In the town of Lancaster,
Hang on.
oh,
What happened here, I called her last year. December, she didn't show up. In January, I think you got an email from me, from Andrea, reminding us of our dates. At the town board meeting, it was said that I didn't reach out to him. I showed the town board that I did have an email, and I didn't bother getting my telephone records. They also stated that this board, nobody on this board contacted them, but yet she was always on the top of the email list. And Diane Terranova provided all of those emails, and Andrea, she can tell you whether or not her name was on it. So it's kind, and in fact, Mayor Ruda, or Member Ruda sent an email out in March 24th, in which all of us got, and Shannon was on that one too. So to go to a town board and tell a town board that none of us reached out to her, if you think I did it wrong, we're gonna be sitting down with.
No, whatever group of this board that works on the bylaws needs to, I think, in my opinion, needs to make it clear how somebody remains on the board for future reference.
And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be reaching out to an attorney, because these documents, because the way Mr. Zanner presented it to me, these documents do not, they might as well be thrown out, because if the oath of office card, the financial card, if none of that has to be filled out and a person can still be here, we've got to get an actual attorney that focuses on this, and we're going to change our bylaws so this can be, it's going to be spelled out from here on in. Because whoever drew these up, we assumed it was correct, and it's too vague. So we're going to go forward from here.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we wanted to know that the presentation of the approval of minutes from February 10th, there was changes to that? Do you remember what they were? Okay, the table items, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 10th meeting? Thanks.
motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, then we got the presentation to approve the minutes from the March 14th meeting. Do I have a second?
Second?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, we have guests here today from Dressler and Malecki, and if they want to speak to us on the financial report.
Do the financial statement first.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Luke Malecki. I was an engagement partner on your external audit. With me handing out a brief presentation is Jared Picard, who was the manager of your fieldwork.
Thank you.
In March meeting, you should have received the financial package with the financial statements, the management letter, auditor communications letter, and a certification report of related to public authorities law. The purpose of the presentation is to present ourselves for any questions that you might have, to go over a brief required communications, and then to go over some of the financial information. So what we did is we put together the presentation in front of you to kind of act as a guide for the results of our audit. On the first page, you'll see a listing of the products of our audit. Foremost, we are hired by the IDA to perform an audit of the basic financial statements. What that means is we perform a series of tests surrounding the general ledger to determine whether or not they fairly represent the activity for the year ended December 31st, 2022, and the balance sheet at that date. We did release an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. In other words, we feel that the financial statements are able to be relied upon in a reasonable manner. That opinion was dated March 14th, which is the date that we finished our field work. Related to that, we issued 2 letters, one of which is the management letter. That's an area that we use to provide any sort of operational or best practices and new reporting requirements. This year was a pretty simple letter, just summarizing some of the new reporting requirements on the horizon. I don't anticipate any of those will materially impact the IDA, but as you move forward, we'll work with the treasurer to make sure that those are all implemented and you stay within the reporting guidance. The auditor communications letter is a formal letter that goes through a series of required communications with us as the external auditors and the IDA board, which acts as the audit committee. The next slide will go over a quick summary of those, but those were all included within that letter. The final bullet is the investment report, which is another item that comes on our letterhead, and that's an area that is required by the Public Authorities Law to let you know if anything came to our attention that would not conform to the investment guidelines set forth by the Public Authorities Law. Nothing came to our attention of that nature. We did feel that based on our testing that the investment guidelines were abided to. The last bullet that's really not a product of our audit because we compile it with the treasurer on the behalf of the agency is the Paris reporting that was filed on March 30th. We had a pretty good response from the companies within the town. I think we were missing 4 confirmations that came back, so if those come in, we'll make sure that we update those. We do work with Mike on that as well. The next slide, and then I'll turn it over to Jared to go through some of the financial things, is our required auditor communication. Foremost, our responsibility under generally accepted auditing standard is to perform the tests surrounding that general ledger to provide reasonable assurance. As I said, the fact that we issued an unmodified opinion meant that we abided to those requirements and were able to gain that assurance. Significant accounting policies, those are all summarized in footnote 1 to the financial statements. Very similar year over year. This year, like most municipalities and authorities, you issued what was referred to as GASB 87. What GASB 87 does is it incorporates any sort of leases that may be issued with that municipality. There's no such leases within this entity, so the IDA did not have any impact from that release of that statement. We are required to communicate any significant estimates. There are no significant estimates in your financial statements. Very straightforward set of financial statements with most of the burden being on the proof of cash. As far as independence go, it is a critical and required component for everyone in our firm, everyone partaking in the audit to be independent of the IDA. We did comply with all those standards, and everyone in our firm actually signed off as being independent of the IDA. Some other matters, we had no difficulties, very strong support from the treasurer, full cooperation. As every other year, the biggest difficulty with this audit is putting together that Paris report and rounding up all the confirmations from the local businesses. But as I said, pretty fair response this year, only missing 4.
So on the next slide, we have a graph showing the past 5 years cash balance. And as you can see, kind of from 2018 to 2021, cash was fairly consistent, jumping between about $1.1 and $1.2 million. For 2022, pretty significant increase of roughly $430,000. This is primarily due to a lot of the agency fees that were collected. There were a couple really big ones for about $164,000 from Commerce Heritage, $140,000 from AC Power LLC. And then if you flip to the next slide, kind of how that shakes out in terms of your operating revenue and expenses. I mean, I feel like every business in the world wishes they had a revenue and expenses that look like this. But so you're looking at about $464,000 in revenue, $121,000 in expenses. So your operating income was about $343,000. And then in addition to that, not reflected in this graph is about another $7,600 in interest earnings on top of this. So definitely a solid year, about as good as you can expect from a revenues versus expenses standpoint. How that kind of translates into your net position. This primarily tracks with cash. There aren't usually a lot of other balance sheet elements on your financial statements. Last year you had about $1.2 million in net position. That jumped up to 1.6. A little bit different than cash. Last year you had a decent sized receivable sitting on your balance sheet. This year there was a small payable. So a little bit of a difference, but overall really strong performance on the financial side. Really strong cash position considering the amount of expenses you have in any given year. And then on the last slide, I have Luke's and my contact information. So if there's any questions, concerns, anything you want to bring up with us throughout the year, feel free to reach out, or we could answer any questions right now if you have any.
Nope, really appreciate this, Mike. Thank you very much for working with them, getting this done as quick as you did. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very smooth.
Anybody with any questions?
I do have a question. Do we normally get a financial statement with the detail, like the profit and loss statement for the year?
Yep,
If
so
that's-
I'm not sure if they probably were distributed for the last board meeting, but yeah, so we have a complete set of financial statements.
This is
with
the summary.
footnotes and- Yep, this is just the summarized version.
Okay, make a motion to accept their report.
Make a motion to accept the report.
Second?
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks to Mike for all his help.
Okay, Mike, you're up.
Thank you. I provided a report with your packet. Just first going over our checking account. At the end of March, it showed a balance of $1,613,707.83. We do have 5 invoices that have been reviewed and approved for payment this evening, including the Treasurer Malecki's invoice for the auditing that's on the agenda. So those vouchers are $17,945, so that'll show an adjusted book balance after payment of those invoices of $1,595,762.83. An update I provided on a few other items. Pilot bills, town and county are all done from this past year. All payments have been received. So the next pilot bills that we would send out this year are the village pilots. I've been working to calculate those. Calculations will be done by the end of this month and given to the Village of Depew and with the Village of Lancaster. And we will the villages handle their own billing. Typically, they'll prepare bills and send them out at the end of May. They're due by July 1st. So everything's on target for that. Again, just an update on the audit and parish reports as they just provided. They've been completed, filed. I've forwarded to Andrea. She's already put them on the website, so they're available for the public to review. And then one final thing is with banking, for Member Peterson's recommendation, I reviewed New York Class Program, an investment account program, which acts similar to a savings account. They typically can get higher interest rates than normal savings accounts and even one-year CDs. So that's been provided to you for your consideration this evening. I would recommend participation in that program since as a town IDA, you are able to join that program, which is open to municipalities. Any questions for me?
On this, Mike, if we can go forward, and maybe, did everybody get a copy of this prior to and read any of it?
Yes.
And it looked good? Not unless you got questions on it?
Their next report comes out in June. That was my only concern, to see how they fared this year.
Okay, we
But,
can wait.
The other one is that we can do, a set amount to what their guarantees are and not be as concerned with Chase, where after the last setup with the banks, pretty much guaranteed.
I don't think there are minimums or anything like that.
No, but I mean, that's something, like just as an example, when I spoke with the representative, they currently had interest rates they're able to provide over 4.5%. I did some research. Currently, savings accounts or one-year CDs are 3.75 or 4%.
And they're locked.
And correct. In a CD, the principal is locked until the end of the term. In this situation, it works just like a savings account. You can transfer money in and out every day whenever you want full access. I talked to Member Peterson about scheduling a finance committee meeting in the next month. If you move forward and participate in this today, we could discuss the level of funding that you want to commit into this program versus keeping it in the checking account or looking at CDs. So any approval would just be for the participation, and then I wouldn't put any funds in there until we discuss it further.
Yeah,
I think we should move forward with it. It sounds like a good idea.
Well, just a couple of questions. What's the risk involved here, depending upon how much we put in there?
that was a very good concern from the Village of Depew when we looked at it. And we tried to poke holes any way you can in it, and we just couldn't. We put initially 2 million in, and I'll be financing a utility fire truck with the interest on it.
That's great.
So it's compounded daily. You can have access to it daily.
At any time, you can transfer the funds right back out.
Right, you could set up separate sub-accounts if you want, for various things that you know, we're considering doing that. We're DPW equipment and fire department equipment.
Is this insured up to a certain amount under?
Yeah, that was a question that Mr. Gazzoni has, and that's a question we're going to review and make sure that we would not exceed any limit that they had insured, and that would be discussed with as part of the Finance Committee before any action's taken in terms of moving any funds over.
With that in mind, I don't have any problem moving forward.
That sounds good.
What do we need to do
A
that?
motion to move forward on that?
Did you want the Finance Committee?
No, I mean, I would recommend approval, and then the Finance Committee can meet and we can discuss those other options before putting any funds into the
And who's the
program.
other member on the committee?
You, Member Ruda, and Mike.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, so
But this would allow all the paperwork to be submitted, get everything set up. It would be the same signers as approved for the checking account, so.
I'll have, before the end of the week, we'll decide what date.
Okay.
And Lynn, after 4 is good for you, usually.
Yeah.
The only thing is you gotta work with Andrea, because it's gotta be recorded, unfortunately.
Okay.
You know, so if you can
Okay.
talk to her, and see maybe what.
We'll include you in on the group email.
Yeah, and this way you can, because it doesn't even have to be live streamed, but as long as she has a paper record of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to make a motion to move forward with this, so Mike can get the paperwork in order for this New York class.
I'll second that motion.
Yes.
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 Okay, I'm going to step back one. I've got the resolution here that for payment for Dressler and Malecki for their services performed. So I want to make a motion to pay them. It's an amount of $8,450. Invoice number 2303034. I make a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Other than that, I had nothing further on my report.
Okay, super. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Okay, we did we got the vouchers. This is here. Okay, he gave his report, that's all done. New York class is done. Okay,
Do you want a motion to accept the CFO report?
yes, we're gonna make a motion, to accept Mike's report.
I'll make that motion.
A second. Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, under old business, we're looking to buy a computer monitor and a scanner for the agency that's never been done before. The amount is for $3,800. In this resolution, though, because we're going through the New York State office to get the discount on this equipment, we have to pay by credit card. They won't accept a check, so I turned around and offered my credit card to be used. Now, unless another board member wants to do it, so that it'll be made out to the LIDA. I'm just putting it up front, and then the LIDA can reimburse me for that. So it's basically, I'm just being the money man at this point. But I need to have also put in this resolution, if we could, to where once I produce and actually give Mike a paid receipt from Dell. I believe it's going to be right directly from Dell.
Yes.
That he can cut a check. So I want the payment resolution already in here. And of course, you and Mr. Peterson and Mike will have to sign the check, because I don't want to sign it. So as long as we can put that addition in on that resolution, I'd like to put this up for a vote for purchasing the computer for $3,800.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
The monthly recurring charge of $313 a month, how would we
It's separate.
submit payment for that?
That's separate. No,
yes.
that's a completely separate resolution. It's got nothing to do with this.
Okay.
That won't be on my credit card. That is something to where
Separate resolution?
they'll be doing that every month, or we'll pay it once a year, however we work out the details on it. You know, that's completely separate. So this is just for the equipment and the equipment only.
Including a scanner?
The scan, you're getting a laptop, you're getting a scanner, you're getting a keyboard and a monitor for the back room. So basically, the only thing, which we're not going to discuss here, but Grant has a spare printer that he's going to end up donating. So we didn't have to purchase a printer, thanks to Grant for that. So, yeah, this is just, so basically, when they're all set, they should be able to get up and running with no problem.
Perfect.
Okay, so I make a motion to accept?
Motion to accept?
Second it?
Yes.
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 Hooray.
Okay, if, on this, can you make sure you get a copy out to me, to them, or Grant?
Progress.
Or, make them know so they can contact me, because they've
Absolutely.
got Dell's, I got to deal, I guess, directly with them, they said,
Right.
with Dell, so, super, thank you. Okay, this other resolution here is for the maintenance package for the computer system. It's going to be the setup and maintenance of it for $314 a month. So I'd like to have a motion to, and this, of course, be paid directly out of the funds from the IDA. My credit card has nothing to do with this at all. So I take a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
I'll second. Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, come to the whole business of Lucas James.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will read the resolution that was prepared by our legal counsel, and also representing Lucas James. Mr. James is here, and so is his attorney, Mr. Donald Alessi. I will read the resolution, and if there's there was comments that were sent for this project and against the project regarding letters that I imagine that were part of your package, I'll read the resolution, and then from their point, then we have to vote on whether or not the project is going to go forward. We have not determined on what pilot we're going to discuss at this point because we're still in the talking stages. So, but the resolution of the Town of Lancaster Industrial Development Agency authorizing the construction and equipment of approximately an 18,000 square foot mixed-use facility by Lucas James, DBA, LJ Construction, to be located at 5827 Broadway, Lancaster, New York, for sale or lease to the agency, a subsequent lease or reconveyance pursuant to an installment sales contract or lease to Lucas James, DBA, LGA Construction, the execution of lease agreements and/or installment sale, contract, mortgage agreement, pilot agreement, and the taking of other actions. I will then forward this to our attorney, Mr. Kevin Zan, and if there's any questions from Mr. James or Mr. Alessi, I would be happy to address them from the board or whatever else the board's preference is. I will turn this over to Mr. Kevin Zander for the legal aspect of the project.
Okay, thank you, Paul. There's a project summary in your packet, and I think that's probably the appropriate place to refer the board to. As Paul mentioned, the applicant is Lucas James. There's a description of this project that's set forth in the project summary. It's a construction of an 18,000 square foot mixed-use two-story facility featuring 8 apartments and approximately 7,200 square feet of commercial and retail space. The applicant is seeking a sales tax exemption in the amount of up to $95,900. a mortgage recording tax exemption of up to $17,625, and a 5-year pilot benefit. This project is a mixed-use project that includes rental housing, retail, and commercial elements. From the legal perspective, under the IDA Act, projects that exceed 1/3 of the total project cost for facilities that are primarily used for making of retail sales are ineligible. The applicant, in its application, has represented that the retail elements of the project constitute 30.48% of the total project cost, which is less than 1/3, and that the non-retail elements of the project constitutes approximately 69% of the total cost. Since the project also includes elements of housing, the board, in order for the project to be considered commercial and eligible for the IDA benefits, the agency would make a determination that the project promotes employment opportunities and prevents economic deterioration in the area served by the IDA, which in this case is the town of Lancaster. The total investment in the project is an amount of approximately $2.9 million.
And in your package, you'll see the in-plan study that was done by us regarding all the benefits and so on and so forth that will be derived from this project. That's part of your package. So the in-plan study is there, the environmental study is there, the public hearing is there, the resolution is there. As Mr. Chairman, I'm saying to you, at this point, if there's no other questions, we should take a vote on the project.
Well,
if not, there will be.
That we have a problem with, Paul.
Pardon me?
That we have a problem with, because I've talked to Kevin Zanner real quick going back. We mentioned that the applicant came forward, stated that he had the money to do the project on his own. So and giving him the IDA isn't really an option. He's already building the building, which just proves that he does not need the IDA, and that he is just trying to upgrade the property, which is not what the IDA is for. This project right now, the way it stands without the IDA, will go on the tax roll, the building will be built, and the businesses will open. I can't see giving an IDA to that, and I believe New York State might have a little, was it you or Paul, one of them, New York State, a B4? The B4.
But for you, mean.
Yeah. So
I think what we'll do is we'll have either Mr. Leslie or Mr. James address your question. Okay?
Yeah, it's a big question, because, I mean, if he's already got it built, there's no sense in us giving him an inducement.
I agree with you. So,
Well,
let Mr. Leslie address your question. Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, at the public hearing, conversation was had with regard to your specific question, at which time Mr. James said that he was prepared to go forward with the project. However, he was asking and seeking the benefits of the IDA program in order to complete and to the condition that he has determined would be in the best interest of this project. So the answer to your question is, will the project be built? Yes, most likely it will be built. Will it be built to the degree that Mr. James has proposed that it be built without the approval of this board and its resolution for the IDA package? No, it probably will not. So I respond to your question accordingly. It's a question of completion to the level of design.
Well, and that's the interior. He stated here that he wanted to improve stainless steel appliances, better cabinets, better flooring. We're not here to make a better project. He presented a project. He started the project with it. New York State frowns on this, and with him stating he had the funds in place, or he would get the funds in place to get the project done, once again, I believe that removes him from the table from the IDA.
Mr. Chairman, in all due respect, I don't know that New York State frowns on completing the project to the level in which it's designed. I respectfully disagree with that statement. And as I said before, It's a question of a design has been submitted, a design has been approved by the town board. Mr. James seeks to comply with that plan, and therefore is seeking the benefit of the IDA package in order to meet that design.
I also had a question. The proposed project has 2 ADA-compliant units, and I'm aware that there are additional expenses to making a unit ADA compliant. There could be additional expenses. I think that ADA compliance is something that is important. I think having units like that are hard to come by and not super accessible. If we don't induce this project, is there the potential for those ADA compliant units to go away or be altered?
Well, I would like to say no, there won't be. The design has always been from day one to make those units ADA compliant, and there is no conversation, quite frankly, with regard to making those non-IDA compliant. So the answer to the down and dirty answer to your question is, it will not change. It will remain ADA compliant.
And accessible.
And I have a question.
I have a question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any people ready to move into the coffee shop area? What are your plans for that?
Yes, we've been having conversations with those persons, companies that are interested in doing it. And quite frankly, they were more interested earlier on than they are now because it's taken a while to get to this point. The answer to the question is yes, we do have interested parties to represent or to rent that restaurant facility.
You feel free to name them?
No, I cannot.
Thank you.
Well, I can. Paperwork was turned into the town of Lancaster, okay? Apparently, you're changing the project and putting a Tim Hortons in there. That has not been approved by the town board. There's going to be a special use permit application. There's going to be another public hearing, and that'll all be discussed. The people specifically in that area did not want a Tim Hortons in that area. I am shocked by the fact that this was brought to my attention, and very disappointed in where this is going. So, and when you look at the percentage, the average cost of putting up a Tim Hortons is quite expensive. It's over $1 million. So we've gone from the total cost of the entire retail project at $900,000 to over $1 million for just a Tim Hortons. This is completely unacceptable in my view. And I don't understand what we're trying to do here to tell people, you know, it's only going to cost this amount and then change the thing at the last minute. But that's what's going on. This has not been approved by the town board anymore. The special use permit has to go through the whole process, so.
Our Councilman Leary, if I can respond to that?
Of course.
There is no plan to convert that into a Tim Hortons. That is not
The special use permit, I
case.
can show you right here, was turned in yesterday.
Yeah, I should respond to that.
Please.
Maybe you were unaware of that,
Would
but
you-
that's
would
what
you
has
stand up
occurred.
so the board can hear you, Mr. James?
Yeah, should I go up?
Please.
Yeah, I didn't want to, he's not fully informed on all the details of the project, and so, you know, Bob Leary is correct. We did just submit an application for a special use permit for Tim Hortons in that coffee shop location. You know, it's not approved yet for the Tim Hortons. The whole project is approved, not for the Tim Hortons. And I don't know if it's terribly relevant here. I think it's more relevant at the town board. But if I'm happy to explain the process, though, of how we got there, because it's been a very changing, evolving project.
Well, Sir, I think what's very relevant is the cost of putting up a Tim Hortons. I think you got to put another project proposal in here to let us know what the cost is.
Question.
Because what I've read on this, it's well over $1 million to do that.
Yeah,
So again, then you're talking, you are exceeding the amount, and you wouldn't qualify for an IDA anyways, so.
Is it true that that's not your expense? That is the Tim Hortons cost, the owner's cost of doing business? They do their own build-outs. The Tim Hortons franchise own?
Yeah, I'd like the opportunity to respond to all of these
Yep.
things. Yeah, yes, it is the Tim Hortons that's responsible for that cost, but also putting up a freestanding Tim Hortons on a new lot from scratch without the shell existing is likely well over $1 million, probably 1.2. But it's well under $1 million when the shell is already constructed, the utilities are already on site, all of which are included in the project cost. So making it from from what it was going to be, which is Buffalo Coffee Company, they backed out, unfortunately. Actually, specifically when when I was made to change do the zoning change to MFMU, multifamily mixed use. Their LOI that they had submitted expired. I assured him I was confident the project was going to go through, but that was not enough for him at that time. And so they backed out, and I've been looking for other tenants since then. Yeah, it is well under $1 million, though, just so you know, for the Tim Hortons to spend on doing their build out when the shell is already existing. That's a significant portion of the cost, well under $1 million.
So I have significant franchise experience. I own a chain of franchise gyms. So I know the well workings behind owning a franchise and the costs that a franchisor pays to put in their said business, the franchise that they purchase. So usually it's not on the developer. They give the vanilla box. The franchise owner comes in and they spend their interior build out and then exterior facade work, signage. He doesn't spend that money. The franchise does.
Yeah, that's right. The windows and the roof and everything that's already included in it. So it doesn't change the budget of this job at all from my end of it. It's actually been quite surprising. So because my initial intent was not to put a Tim Hortons there specifically, to be honest. But I've gone through 2 other tenants that were both smaller name places that have now backed out, and my hands are getting to be a little bit tied now, mainly because the project has taken so long to get approved for the town. But I bear the burden of that and the responsibility for that fully. But anyway, but it's funny though. Completely was not planning on putting a Tim Hortons there. But that being said, just yesterday I was at the site and a lady with 2 kids in the back and a minivan pulled up, and they said, "Hey, what's being built here?" And I explained real quick that, hey, it's a plaza. It's a coffee shop going here, and they're like, "Oh, what coffee shop?" And I said, "Well, it's not for sure yet, but it's looking right now. It might be a Tim Hortons." And she was like, "Yes, that's awesome. This corner needs a Tim Hortons. It would be amazing here. Thank you so much. That's awesome." And I said, "Well, nothing's decided yet, but anyway." And that is representative of a few conversations that I've had there. When I've even floated the idea of switching it to a Tim Hortons, I've gotten extremely positive responses from people. But that portion is not yet approved. It's a special use permit's needed for that. It is well within the project, but it is a slight variance from what it originally was going to be, and I acknowledge that, completely. I'm also happy to respond to any other questions as regards to the financing. I can clarify some things if needed to, because I know there's a lot of questioning about that before. So I'm happy to answer any questions while I'm up here.
Mr. Chairman, I ask if there's any more questions from the town board?
Any more questions?
Well, the only other questions I would have would be are you going to put in a new application with all the new changes in here and try for another IDA? Because again, what is in here is not...
We're at a voting stage here.
Well, no, we're not.
Sure,
it's a completely different project at this point. And you don't know the percentages.
Bob, I don't see how it's any different.
Of course it is.
The only difference is that you're hearing Tim Hortons' name on that corner, okay? They're not out of their bounds because it's a Tim Hortons. What if it was Joe's Coffee Shop? My question is, what if it was Joe's Coffee Shop?
Then
you would be okay with it?
There is a cost that he estimated was going to go in here that they have to meet the requirements of. We don't know what that cost is now with the Tim Hortons going in there.
I disagree.
Kevin,
Those costs are going to be the same.
Legally, Kevin, where are we at this point? Where do we stand here with this? Do we have to back this up, or are we not at a vote right now for this project?
Well, the board has the discretion to take whatever action it wants on the application at this time. It can vote it up, it can vote it down, it can table it, seek more information. This is new information to the board. I'm not going to inject my own personal view on that, but This wasn't brought to the attention of the board until today. And all I would say is that I would, personally, I don't know that the numbers are the same. I don't know that, but that's, again, this is your judgment. This is not your attorney. So I don't know that that's the case, and I think you've asked those questions here. The other question the board may want to consider is that the town board now has to issue a permit for this project to go forward. And the typical thought process there, I think, from this board in the past is get the permits in place and then pass the resolution or review the resolution of the IDA. So that's for you to consider. But
It's very relevant that I say this. So this project from the very beginning, no matter what restaurant goes in at that corner, because we changed the zoning to MFMU, we need a special use permit for any coffee shop that goes in there. Any coffee shop needs a special use permit. So that does not hold this project up in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
That's a tenant thing. We haven't even discussed who the other commercial tenants are. I don't know as it's relevant to the IDA, to be honest. But if it is, I'm more than happy to discuss it. I mean, there's several other tenants that I don't have yet. Does that mean we should delay the whole project because I don't have 2 tenants? I mean, projects are started more often than not without their tenants fully decided on. And the price has not changed whatsoever. My price as the developer has not changed even a little bit. From it being a Tim Hortons versus a Buffalo Coffee Company versus a Black Rifle Coffee or whatever it's going to be. It doesn't change my cost. I'm building the shell. And that's what the IDA has the numbers on. It doesn't change.
The town board itself is going to have to consider whether this is even going to be approved at this point, which means it's probably going to go back for another seeker.
The restaurant.
To the
right?
Tim Hortons, correct. Because of the volume of traffic that's going to be in the area. We're researching it as we speak right now. It's a lot of traffic in that area. We're going to have another public hearing on this to see what the neighbors think about this. So again, there's no guarantee. This was supposed to be some small coffee shop, not bringing in that type of traffic in there. So again, there's a lot that's going to happen with the town board. I'd recommend that we table it at this point until we actually see the numbers, so we can actually decide what we're going to do as far as the IDA goes, and go from there.
It does. Yeah, you bring up a good point. It is a change. It absolutely is. I mean, it's still a drive-through restaurant, a drive-through coffee shop, exactly as described. But it's a bigger name, and it probably will likely bring a little bit more traffic. Although I didn't specify what name or what tenant because I didn't want to lock my hands together before. So, that you could say that about any. You could say any. What if it was Starbucks? What if it was something else? You know what I mean? I mean, it was always a drive-through coffee shop. That's what it was, and that's what it still is. You know what I mean? So go ahead, sorry.
So, Kevin Zanner, this was one of the first things that came to me in January as being a new board member. The project was brought to here based upon the 2/3, 1/3. Even though it's close, it still falls within the guidelines of what can be done. Is that changing? Seem to think that it's not.
I mean,
We're not sure?
I can't say that for sure. I mean, that's not up to me. I mean, you're taking evidence at this board meeting right now from the applicant who is saying it won't change.
Yeah,
You have in front of you the project the way it stands. There's no news regarding the Tim Hortons. We understand
Which is going to change the,
Is it going to change the dollar amount? Is it going to change the pilot, the sales tax? At this point, they're saying no.
So I have a couple, do you have questions?
no, I'm fine.
So the build is already in process. Now a special use permit's needed by the town board. If the board votes it down, does that change your project? Or you're still just going to build that shell as it is and try and find a different tenant? Is that?
No, I would still build the project. I would attempt to find a different tenant. Just to be clear, this project, because it's in the MFMU zoning district, it requires that special use permit for any restaurant I put in any of those facilities. If I put a restaurant in of any kind with a coffee shop is, I have to get a special use permit. That's in Suite 1, Suite 2, Suite 3, Suite 4. But this was planned from the very beginning to be a drive-through coffee shop, with a long drive-through, so it can adequately accept a lot of traffic. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I don't think that changing the tenant changes the project really at all. But I mean, to be completely frank, I had a project in mind like this project, and I looked at 3 different locations to, when I was trying to decide where to purchase the land to build it. Now, it has changed, don't get me wrong. It looks a little bit different now than it did in the very beginning when I was conceptualizing it. But I mean, I looked in Alden, and I had a site I was looking at. I looked in Williamsville, I had a site I was looking at. And I ended up going with Lancaster, and one of the main reasons, one, because it's closer for me, so it's a little bit easier, but the second large main reason was that I was told specifically, maybe I'm wrong, but I was told that if the project fell within the IDA requirements, I would qualify and would likely be approved for this funding. So this was the IDA stepping in and helping here was a major contributing factor to the project being here, what it is, where it is. So, if I don't get the approval, it will be a difficult lump to take, but I'll take it. I'll have to downgrade a lot of the finishes, largely on the outside. Stucco's, twice as expensive as vinyl siding, a little bit more than twice as much. So it will be a vinyl sided building if I don't get, approval. It won't have the stone features on the front. It won't be as nice, but it will be completed. But some things were out of order last time we were discussing them. So I was told I have to have this project approved before I even come to the IDA. I think that's true. That's what I was told anyway. And I can't even go for financing until I have this approval, because this changes the financing. If I have it or don't have it, I can't go to the bank, apply for it when I don't have the approval for the project yet. Developers don't work like that. You know what I mean? I've done larger projects than this, larger projects, plural. This is not a first-time thing for me. It is in Lancaster. It's been very difficult in Lancaster, but I'm trying to make it work. I love this place. Anything else I can answer for anyone?
Well, I just... Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'm hearing, as your hearing officer, you have 2 proposals on the board. Mr. Levy has come up to the point where he's saying he wants to table, and then you have the other one, whether or not after the public hearing, whether or not you want to approve this project. You have 2 on the board, and I think you have to ask your board which way they want to go, because I'm hearing Tim Hortons, I'm hearing all these things, but as your hearing officer, I seem to hear 2 proposals from the IDA board, which Kevin and I, cannot get involved in.
I think there's still another question.
Well, just a comment. I mean, real estate-wise, bridging the gap between Alden and Lancaster is a thing. From, the stretch down Walden, Clinton, Broadway, it's slowly over the last 8 to 10 years been a bridge connecting. So, it's been a long... Broadway is a long road before you hit some stores, but it's been filling in. And I just had a common question off Mr. Leemaster's first comment or statement about you mentioning that maybe if you didn't have the funds, you would still build the project. But isn't that the mindset of most of the businesses that come here, that they have deep, big pockets and they're applying for pilots and they're being approved, but they could very easily still build the project without the pilot?
No, and that's not the fact. Not all of them are like that.
The big, like Robert James?
But they don't. They also turn around and don't come in here saying, "I've got the pockets, I got the money, and I'm going to build it." We just did a big project there on Walden Avenue, and a very big company, Robert James.
Yeah.
And they're also employing 8 well-paying jobs. There are all kinds of traffic. Basically, I think they're full boat, aren't they, on taxes on the land? That whole thing, I think, was full boat.
We don't abate the land. You never abate the land.
But that project went up. Here, we've got the same situation, and I said it before, everybody's looking at this. You got a gas station here, a gas station here. You got 2 other businesses. You got a small restaurant, coffee shop right next to it, and you're giving somebody, and I'm not knocking him, it's a good project, I don't mind it, but I cannot see giving somebody a break they can afford to do it on their own.
I feel like
this is taxpayer money.
That's most businesses, though, that are applying for these pilots.
But these are the type of things that I really want to get away from. I want to get into more of the industrial where we got people having jobs. You can't go to that restaurant if you don't have a job. And people right now are suffering. You don't have, and you got to remember, every tax break we give him, the taxpayers of Lancaster do pick that up.
But I did read, I read somewhere in the docs over the last so many months that jobs are secondary to our goal. Our initial goal is to build.
That was a statement. Go and take a look on New York
It's
State
in-
websites.
It's
It was a
written-
statement. Jobs are number one for me.
LIDA's.
LIDA's
goal,
number.
First and foremost.
First
goal
and
is
foremost
jobs.
is looking for jobs.
Or what's best for the community.
That's exactly
And
it.
it's-
What's best is for the community is get people here that can have
What
good
about the
businesses and
consumers?
jobs.
What about the
Pardon?
consumers and giving the
The
consumers? another
consumers,
place?
all of that will plan out. He'll make money once we turn around and bring jobs in. If you don't have a job, you can't buy a product.
This doesn't create jobs, right?
I'm not knocking, but it's machinists, we had machinist jobs that have left West New York. This economy in the state is so bad right now. Our only newspaper moved to Cleveland. They have a shell, they moved out of their own building and moved into a rental space in the Larkin building. We don't have a major newspaper here. And this is what I'm saying, the taxpayers are the ones that pick up the balance. I'm not denying you've got a good project there, I'm just saying I don't think this is money that's well spent. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
We got to, I got to,
hearing
okay, we're
officer,
going
I
to just turn around.
recommend,
We want to table this, or do you want to vote?
Vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'm recommending that you bring it to a head right now, whether or not you want to table this project or you want to approve it.
Want to take a vote for tabling the project? Do I have a second?
Second.
This is a motion to table.
Table.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
The next vote, Mr. Chairman, should be
Okay.
whether or not you want to
Vote
approve
whether or
it.
not to approve. Have a second?
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 No. Okay, thank you. You've got your,
The project as it stands now, you're saying there'll be
It's approved.
there'll be a 5-year pilot with a sales tax and a mortgage recording tax, and I'm looking at legal counsel, is that correct?
Can I ask you a question? Without looking at the figures, we don't even know if this complies with the law. If it turns out it doesn't comply with the law, what are the ramifications? What can we do?
Good question. If the applicant does not meet these requirements, and I think, Member Litter, you're speaking to the retail sales component of this?
That's correct.
If the benefit goes over that limit, this board has the ability to recapture those benefits. You can take back the sales tax exemption, the mortgage reporting tax exemption, and the pilot. And that is built into the resolution and will be built into the project agreements that we will present to their council.
And at what point will we see these numbers?
Well, I think initially, once they finish the project, they'll have to execute a project cost affidavit. We'll ask them to break out the numbers. So, they are making a representation to this board that the numbers in this application are correct. And I think that that's what this board is relying on, at least in part, in coming forward and approving this.
Exactly.
So if it goes off, if it does not meet those requirements, you have the legal remedy to come back and say, we're taking these benefits back.
Okay, and if Tim Hortons supplies that in the money for this particular location?
I don't think Tim Hortons is relevant to that because they're doing their own build out. This is a shell project, and I think that's how it was with the coffee shop too. So they don't get it, but by the way, just to be clear on this, any of the tenants that are going in there, and I'm talking on the commercial side, do not have entitlement to utilize the sales tax exemption that the agency is approving today. This is an exemption that is applicable to the construction of the building itself. So Tim Hortons can't use the sales tax exemption to buy furniture, fixtures, and equipment to furnish the space. And frankly, if they were an eligible subtenant and not a retail tenant, you do pass that benefit on. That is exactly how Robert James Sales is structured, because that is a different type of business, not a retail business. So I'm just pointing that out to the board, that we have structured the resolution in this fashion, and you do have a remedy.
Thank you.
Yeah, but let me just clarify some of that, just so that everybody on the board knows. Before any sales tax or any type of benefits are given to this company, they have to pay 25% of the 1% agency fee that is instituted by this project. In other words, whatever the amount of the project is, it's 1%. That's what the agency receives. He has to pay, and Kevin will do a fee agreement and so on and so forth, and that check will have to come here before I can issue what we call an ST60 or an ST123, which allows him to have a sales tax exemption. He has to pay us 25% of that agency, whatever the amount of the project is.
Thank you.
But the Tim Horton thing is new to us, Mr. Leary.
Certainly new to me.
Okay, any new business?
Yes, I would like to introduce again, I passed out to the board, Mr. Tom Sweeney's here. He would just like to address the board regarding the package that I handed all the board members for the Lancaster Village Phase 2, which he has sort of like explained everything that's going on with Phase 2. And what I would like to do is, this is not on the agenda for any other purpose other than for the board to look at, and for the board come in May of this year, that the next board meeting, that we do a public hearing, and it has to determine whether or not after the public hearing you want to do an inducement, which is the approval. If not, if you want to wait till June, and Mr. Sweeney has agreed to that. So in regards to this package that you have in front of you, I suggest that you review it. And after Mr. Sweeney talks, we will talk about this in the May meeting, just for whether or not we should go forward with this project. Mr. Chair, I recommend that we listen to Mr. Sweeney.
All right, thank you, folks. What I wanted to do is create this packet for you that really kind of walks you through a lot of the talking points that we'll hear in the public meeting. I would let you guys decide whether you'd want me to review this now, but I'll just kind of overview it in a very short term here. The first 4 or 5 pages really talks about in more specific detail what we're trying to do. Kind of gives you the overview of that, also the letter we submitted. And just on tab 1 is really the project scope that we looked at day 1 back in 2016 when we started evaluating this. You can see the blighted site that the village of Lancaster was. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Going through these packets, there is a table of contents there right before that tab number 1 that will tell you what each tab means. And it's all of the factors that we've considered in moving forward with a 3-phase project back in 2019 for what we call Lancaster Village Center, all 3 phases. I would bring to your attention that back in March 19th of 2019, we did approve Phase 1 through the IDA. We've been obviously very successful. We talked a little bit about that in the last round. On March 10th, 2022, 5 days before the world stopped and COVID hit us, we were approved also to incorporate all 3 phases. We got positive signs from the bank. They were willing to fund the whole thing, but obviously 5 days later after that approval, the world stopped. All the banks scattered except for one. We had to back the project back down just to do Phase 1. So going forward, you'll see a lot of documented evidence in here from the Joint Comprehensive Plan. I've only included the relevant pages that talk about the revitalization of the village of Lancaster, and we followed that as a book and a guideline, along with relying on the IDA to do this. And the last thing I would say is it's really important from a timeline perspective. As you could hear on the last projects, timelines are very important. Costs are going up rapidly. We would like to go forward with this project by breaking ground in August, and we've set the stage and paid in advance all of the costs to do that. We would need the IDA's approval to do that. This is a but for we will not go forward. If we don't have IDA credits, the banks won't fund it. They will walk away. We'll sit on the project and the project site indefinitely.
And Mr. Chair, what I recommend is regarding scheduling a public hearing, that the board members contact you, and then if they want to go forward with a public hearing in the May meeting, you have to then contact Mr. Zanner, and Mr. Zanner will recur a public hearing for the May, and then you have to also determine whether or not you want to do an inducement immediately following the public hearing. If not, it has to wait until June when we will do a resolution. That's all up to the board. That's not up to Mr. Zanner or me.
Yeah, the inducement right at the time, the day we have this, I'm not for that because Mr. Peterson had asked this on the last one. I like waiting 1 month because then people who work nights, whatever, can watch it. And we did get letters in, had people that made comments on it. So I don't like the idea of hearing it and then deciding on it because you have people that might not.
And that's the reason why we're bringing it to you today,
Yeah, I just
to
want
talk
him to
about whether or
understand why
not
I'm
what you
doing it.
want to do
I'm
in
on
the
the
May
same.
meeting or the June meeting.
Yeah, probably, well, if we're gonna, if we did do it in the May meeting, nothing would be approved until June.
Just the public hearing would be
You would
approved.
just have your public hearing.
But they
And
have
that's
to
consistent.
contact you to see whether or not the other 6 members and you will want to go along,
I mean,
and you have to
we're all
contact
sitting here
Kevin.
now. We're all sitting here now, if they want to go forward, or do you want it with Kevin? Okay.
Well,
Contact- yeah, contact me,
I don't want to be the
we'll
wet
discuss
blanket here, but we don't have an application.
You don't have
completed
any-
yet. I
okay,
mean, I
we
see it
don't
in the
have it.
paperwork, yeah, but that's part of the review process, is to make sure the application is in a final form before we then call a public hearing. So
And
I'm
the-
just trying to be,
Is the application in the back
Yeah.
of this?
The application,
here.
the application is
Okay.
is section 5. So
yeah,
you
and
have-
there's pieces that are missing in here, I can tell from looking.
There you go.
Okay.
So I'm happy to work with you and through Paul, but we need a completed application for the board to vote on.
Okay, when you get that, pieces that you feel, let me know, and then we can
Yeah.
figure the rest of it out. Okay, super, thank you.
That's so that we know. And then, in answer to your other questions, Duval Safety, I've been in contact with them, talking about a huge warehouse in Lancaster. They're in the city of Buffalo, and we'd have to do what we call an intermunicipal move so that the ECIDA doesn't attack us as a board. So I have talked to the Duval, and I just talked to Mr. Peterson today regarding another project called New Buffalo Shirt that's talking about buying a building at 4400 Broadway, right? So there's more coming, okay? And what I'm led to believe, both of these companies are type of manufacturing companies. So I'm letting the board know now, but I do not have an application from either one.
Wasn't there an electronics company or somebody that wanted to go over by Tops there? Did you ever hear anything more?
What was that?
An electronics company. Going back, we had discussed over by the Tops Market on Genesee. They were looking at a lot over there.
I haven't gotten it yet, so Kevin, I don't know.
Okay, well, no, you had just mentioned the
But
company was interested.
As I've said to all the board members, if they ever want to come with me when I talk about companies, they're more than welcome to come.
Okay.
And you and I are talking about Duval going together.
Right.
But I'm done.
Okay. So, Mr. Sweeney, if it's public hearing next month is the earliest?
If
we get the application?
Assuming they.
Well, possibly, because Kevin's got to get all of the paperwork together. He'll let me know. I'll let Andrea know to get the information out to you on exactly how or when, if we can get it in, because we got to get it into the newspaper 2 weeks in advance and everything else. So it all depends when all this paperwork gets done.
That was one of the reasons why we moved the date too, right? To Tuesdays, right?
For the paper.
So that-
Well, that was more or less, Fridays were bad days because you had a lot of holidays.
Okay.
You know.
Kevin, you got to keep in mind, I do not move forward unless this guy tells me to move
Exactly, and I'm glad that you know.
I get the application, but he's got to tell me, Paul, it's good to go.
Mr. Sweeney, I just wanted to see if I can understand your timeline. If you want a date in August, when do we need to be through a process?
So I'll work with the team here, and Kevin, I thought I had everything in line. I've submitted things. There are certain things not in the package that were submitted as part of the application, so we'll figure that out. For my timeline, I'd like to get in the public hearing in May. It's my expectation we would vote in June. If I can do that, my project will be ready to go on June 23rd, which is when our documents will be complete, will be submitted for a permit. We have to get in the ground by August. After that, which is pretty tight after that, July bids, August in the ground, and we're pre-preparing for that. If we can't do that, we would be pushed a full year. We can't build in the middle of the winter with heated concrete. The costs just go crazy after that, and at that point, it would be delayed and reevaluated. So that's my objective. I don't want to pressure anybody, but that's kind of my timeline.
Mr. Sweeney, could you tell the board what percentage of the business district do you think that you'll end up owning at the end of the project?
Gosh, I don't know.
Well, you must have, you got ballpark figure.
In reference to jobs, in
No,
reference
to the business.
value?
aspect, Yeah, the business area.
So value, maybe 20%, something to
20%
that
you think
effect.
only?
At the most, I would think.
That much of West Main Street, and you still got some on Central Avenue.
Yeah, the central business district is about, I think it's a couple square miles.
Pretty shrunk down. Pretty
Yeah.
shrunk down.
I mean, I don't know that that's relevant. How much does
Well,
Mr. Palladino own when it comes to the
It's
Buffalo Bills?
It is relevant in this matter.
So, okay.
The village it was a vibrant business district, and the reason was there were multiple business landowners that owned the business and the property, which kept them there. It kept a good community together. The change is coming now, where we're gonna have one owner, a lot of different businesses, but that connection to the ground by the business owners is lost when it's a lease. Would you agree?
Connection to the ground.
Yeah, to the roots of the village, okay?
I don't know in what context. I mean, I'm trying to understand, but,
Well, it's a concern. I'm not saying that your project has really helped, quite frankly, the village. I'm a longtime resident. I walk the brick roads of West Main Street.
Come on.
And you've done a really good job. My concern is an awful lot of the business district is going to end up in the ownership of a landlord, you.
Yeah.
And it changes the dynamic of what can happen within that village a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a concern that it's not, I'm for your project, but I'm concerned that a lot of the business district will end up in one person's hands.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And I would respond in two ways. One of the things I think that's really important, and the reason I'm here in the first place, is since urban renewal in the 1970s, the village has been a disaster, and that's been 50 years.
That was a big mistake.
That was a big mistake.
I don't want another big mistake made in the village.
Exactly, and that's why we're trying to do it little by little. When you think of those business owners that are currently in the village, all of them are brand-new entrepreneurs who've got 5 women-owned businesses. None of them can afford to build a multi-million-dollar building. They're looking to come in, lease space, get off the ground, and benefit their families, hire employees, and I'm creating those opportunities. I'm happy to do it if it's not something the village wants, which is not what I've heard from the majority of the village, all the folks that I've talked to. They want us to continue to go forward.
I do.
We really want to make that impact. Do I really want to own everything in the village? Absolutely not. There's huge risk. If something happens in the village, guess what? If I own a large majority and the village goes downhill and nobody wants to visit here, I'm going to be bankrupt living in somebody's basement. So, and that's likely since I'm borrowing in the tens of millions of dollars to get these things done. But I want to make an investment. I love the history of the village. I own 2 historical buildings built in 1873 and 1895. I regularly promote the history. I've returned the Gilded Maple building, which was Carson's Jewelers, and before that, New York store. I've returned that back to its original look and feel. So I'm really trying to keep that historic character, and I feel I have the ability to do that and add some value.
Mr. Leary, I just have a question now. Regarding the Lucas James project, number one, if they don't sign the fee agreement and they don't pay the 25%, it does not go forward, okay?
Okay.
I'm asking you as a town board member now, what's the status of the Lucas James project? Does the town have to come back and approve the Tim Horton thing, or what's the next step for the town board? I guess that's when because
The application...
we have to get town board approval.
Yeah, the application was received for a special use permit. Up until yesterday, the town did not know that he wanted to put a Tim Hortons in there.
Okay.
If anybody's ever been to a hearing about Tim Hortons, there's all sorts of factors that get involved there with how much space, how many vehicles you can put in there, how much traffic is going to be affected by having a Tim Hortons in there. I had the opportunity to sit through one of those at a Cheektowaga Town Board meeting. It's very extensive. So we're going to have to go through all that. We're probably going to, again, on one vote, I'm guessing, but we're probably going to go back for seeker to make those determinations. And then the town will determine whether we're going to approve that special use permit or not.
Yeah, because the IDA cannot go forward unless we have town board approval.
Well, that's just, yeah, okay. Thank you.
So that you know that. And after doing these for a lot of years, I know the town boards can sometimes throw a wrench into the project, whatever.
Like,
And I
I mean,
use
clearly,
that word loosely.
we weren't notified of what was going to be going in
Okay.
there, nor was Mr. James' attorney notified of what was going to go in there. So I don't know what's going on here, but we didn't know about it. We will look into it.
But it was always a drive-through coffee shop, though, correct?
It was a small coffee shop.
With a drive.
They called it a boutique, which is.
Coffee
kind of
shop,
a, you
which
know,
Could have been a Starbucks.
Which is not a Tim
Well,
Hortons.
Nice job.
it's, you know, boutique.
I might keep you.
Okay, anyone else want to speak?
I had a question regarding the New York State Economic Development Council, if there's a potential for LIDA to become a member of that.
I want to look through the information Paul gave me and talk to him more on that, and then we'll get back to that at our next meeting.
So that'll be on the agenda for...
I'll talk to Paul and we'll set it up, because I want to see what he's got as far as that other document.
Are you talking about the?
The New York, well, I'll talk to you about that and about joint.
Yeah, he's got all of it. I didn't commit to anything. All I did was got what Kevin asked me to get.
I'm gonna give Andrea that. She can scan it and give everybody a copy by tomorrow.
So, okay, and then we can put it on the agenda for
We can
May.
put it on, we can
Great.
discuss it, yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Anybody else want to speak? Paul?
Chairman, can I stay seated,
Yeah.
please? Thank you, sir. I get the Lancaster Bee, I don't know if you can hear me. And I read up on, thank you, Lynn Ruda, our village mayor, which I'm part of the village.
Excuse me, sir, but you have to state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For Andrea
Okay,
to make
thank
this as
you.
a public
My name is-
comments.
My name is Paul Nosbish, Nosbisch Jr. You need my address or anything?
The town board does it.
Okay.
Okay.
You know me. I'm gonna be reading through parts of this because when somebody writes anything, or I've been looking into the IDA myself, like I look into other things, and I do my own research. So the first line was, it says industry should mean more than manufacturing to IDA. Industrial development agencies, IDAs, have the potential to drive and support economic growth within a community. IDAs play an important role in bringing businesses in, helping to achieve community-wide economic development goals. As I read that, then I took bits, the whole thing, and I dissected it. So please follow along. With the Erie County Industrial Development Agency, ECIDA, our mission statement, this is their mission statement, reads, the mission of the Erie County IDA and its affiliates, which is Lancaster IDA affiliated with, is to provide the resources that encourage investment, innovation, workforce development, and international trade, resulting in a successful business climate focused on growth, economic stability, job creation, and retention for businesses and individuals, which improves the quality of life for the residents of the region. Now, the quality of life, I know what it means, but I want to know exactly what it means. So I found this author. Quality of life is a highly subjective measure of happiness that is an essential component of many financial decisions. Factors that play a role in the quality of life vary accordingly to personal preferences, but they often include financial security, job satisfaction, family life, health, and safety. The author was Julia Kagan. So I looked up economic development, what it exactly means. It means participation in or support of an organized program or entity which for the purpose of its mission engages in activities designed to encourage employment opportunities development, commercial and manufacturing business/industry to locate and or expand. So, then the next line was written, the Lancaster IDA has undergone a lot of changes over the last 2 years, with 7 newly appointed board members in 2022, along with having 7 inexperienced board members. The Lancaster IDA also replaced their chief financial officer, attorney, secretary, and chairperson the same year. I'll return to that later. Give me a chance.
Do you have a copy of this that you can give to Andrew, that maybe the board can present it? Because it seems like we're going to be here for an hour and a half. And I don't mean to be sarcastic, but the point is, do you have a copy of what you've written down that Andrew can pass out to the board?
No.
Oh.
Not right now.
Okay.
I just was doing pause, just doing my own, now, the next one was recognizing the need for direction and guidance. The Lancaster IDA board voted to move forward with a proposal from Consult at ECON. So I looked into this corporation on their website, and they're actually a management and economic insight, provides economic feasibility management and planning services to nonprofit organizations, public agencies, and private businesses. On their website sections, community redevelopment, downtown plans, waterfront plans, parks and recreation, transportation, historical preservation, arts and culture plans, conference and convention centers, and fiscal economic impact. So that one is the one I centered on just about. They did examples with baseball spring training impacts, lifestyle center impacts, study, gaming impacts, case and gaming eval studies, underwater world, Glen Falls Civic Center, and a new town development impact study. And then I look further into their services line. They do market and financial feasibility projects, range from small venues and projects to very mixed-use projects with multiple venue and land uses, and then development planning, consulting on development strategies, and planning and for a wide range of projects in all sections of the economy for many years. This experience includes working from site-specific projects to region-wide strategies. So I want to focus on this one. So I put in industrial studies. It said error with your search. I use the word industrial. Error with your search. Commercial buildings, I tried error with your search. Then I tried to put in industrial development agencies, studies and planning. There was an error with your search, please try again. When this comes forth to the board, my belief is you really have to do your due diligence if you're going to pay somebody to do something, that they actually do something that is focused on IDAs. This organization is in, I use the words that industrial development agency, not one time did it come up, which honestly surprised me. But like I said, when this type of comes up before the board, before it comes up, it's on every one of you to look into this. You just can't take I've always learned as I got older and older, I'm not going to take the word of one person, I'm going to research it. And I've done that throughout my life. So if you would have paid for this, it would have went nowhere.
We'll pay for what?
I've been doing, no, Paul, to come in, okay.
I've been doing this for 42 years. They pay me to make,
Paul, he's talking about the feasibility study.
I'm not talking about you, Paul.
But we do that, we do the feasibility study and then I give it to...
No. He's talking about that
All
booklet.
right,
Paul,
go ahead.
I
Never mind.
apologize
never
to you,
mind.
it has nothing to do with you.
It's got, no-
I
yeah,
know, Paul, you have over 37 years in the IDA, I looked you up, by the way. You are a, you know what I
get my
called you?
criminal record?
You want to know what I called you? Here you go.
hey, Paul, can we wrap this up?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's get, because we're off topic.
I got a nickname for you, by the way.
Yeah, we're off, just kind of wrap it up here, because we're...
Yeah, I'm trying my best to talk as fast. Okay, the Erie County, this one, while easily misconceived, the term industrial is often confused or interchanged with the synonymous term manufacturing. The word industrial is a part of the term industrial development agency. It actually means related to or characterized by industry. Industry could be the housing industry or the entertainment industry or any other industry that is going to be an economic driver within a community. There are strict guidelines regulated by the New York State to hold industrial development agencies accountable to the type of projects that can be induced, and so on and so forth. The mission statement, I won't get into that one, but there is just focused on the projects within the historical district or the business district, whatever you want to call it. Just like the ICIDA, the Lancaster Industrial Development Agency is a public benefit. Of course, you know that. So I looked up what
Hey, Paul, can you do me a favor, honest, because I know a lot of people want to, can you take that, put it together, and get that to me in form, and then I can mail it out to the individuals here?
Can I just finish with this then?
Oh, okay,
Please?
go ahead, yeah.
Thank you. This is the Erie County ECIDA project type matrix, required state criteria, material terms, and suggested evaluated criteria. This is, as you heard, this is required state criteria. It is within the your LIDA. They expect the project type, manufacturing, warehouse, distribution. Next one, agriculture, food processing. Next one is adaptive reuse, community development. Within the then there's tourism. Then there is back office data call centers. Then there is energy production. Then there is market rate senior housing. That's it. When you look at, since I need to, apartment buildings and retail, you're not bringing in, you're bringing in barely, I want to look this up regarding that. The people that work in that type of world, there's no possible way that they can have a family or try to raise a family. I looked up from retail sales associate, they only make, they typically fall between $26,500 and $34,500. Now the real jobs on the floor, cashier one, average salary is $28,172. Cashier two is.
Hey, Paul, we're kind of off the track here.
I'm trying to.
I know what.
You want me to close? I'll just close.
Yeah, if you could,
I'll just
please.
close.
You're giving us.
No, I'm just saying, if you're looking at retail jobs, there's something wrong here. There is really something wrong. That is that is low income. You are right, Mr. Leary. You as a board gotta look at people to make a living, a real living, and that is industrial. That's why it's called industrial. Don't get away from it. I worked in this world for 37 years and made a really good living and had benefits. Those jobs don't have benefits, you know so. And a lot of them people try to make by having two jobs. So if you, even Mr. Lucas, I called the Erie County, and as soon as I told him, I drove by his location and I told this gentleman that he was already building, he already said it's off the books on that, right then and there. They won't even look at it. But if you're looking at just retail jobs, you failed. You failed as a board. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Make a motion to adjourn
I
then?
make
So
a motion, we
moved.
adjourn?
Second.
On the roll?
Yeah. Yes.
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 Kevin, sign my check, will you? I gotta go home.
Yeah, Kevin's got to do that. I don't want to get cramps.
Hey, you want me to reach out to you, Kevin, just to clarify anything on this?
Here is,
Yeah, he'll work.
I'm not sure you're working off the right one that's what I'm going to start with, so I need to make sure of that. And I know some of the environmental stuff's not there.
yeah, that's the one
Figure
where
it out. I can do that.
yeah, if you could just
Probably be
scan that,
easier for me
email
to
it
do
out
that.
and tomorrow. Then if none of this is a rush, so don't worry about it. And yeah, if you make sure you put that addition in so I get my money back.
Yeah, I don't think I got a copy of it. If it's in there, I'll have to look at it. So.
Did we ever get a resolution on who enforces the rules, the IDA rules, like the bylaws? You said that was the town, but there's parts in there that are not the town. It's not to do with the town.
That's the people that
Well,
kill IDAs.
It depends what you're talking about. David?
I'll reach out to computer guys and see if Pat can move that along.
Yeah, Andrea, if you talk to her, she's going to make sure that